The gravel spat out from under the car tires like sparks from a fire, sharp and angry against the empty silence of the high desert. That sound was the only thing keeping 11-year-old Leo Barker from exploding. He pressed his forehead against the hot window glass and watched the dead lands of eastern Oregon slide past. Sagebrush, cracked earth, a world the color of bones, a world that looked as burned out as he felt. His mother sat beside him, crying into her hands. His father gripped the steering wheel so hard Leo wondered why it didn't shatter. No one talked. No one comforted anyone. It was the kind of silence that made a kid feel like he was already gone. "It's only 3 months, Leo," his mother whispered, her voice thin like old paper. "Mr. Lawson will help you. He's an old friend of—" Leo turned his face away. He already knew the truth. He had heard them last night when they thought he was asleep. Words like oppositional defiant disorder and unmanageable and a danger whispered across the kitchen table. His father's voice dead and flat. His mother's voice cracking. They weren't sending him to get better. They were dumping him. The car rattled over a cattle guard and turned down a long dirt track. Ahead stood a dying farm slumped against the sky. The porch sagged. The paint had given up. The barn leaned like it was tired of trying to stand. Even the wind felt worn out. A tall old man was waiting on the porch, hands in his pockets. His beard was wild white, his boots dust-beaten, and his eyes as pale and hard as the desert sky. Jacob Lawson. When Leo's parents stepped out, the smell hit him, dust, hot metal, and something rotten drifting from the barn. Leo watched his father hand Jacob an envelope. Thick, heavy, payment. They're paying him to take me. Not adopting me, not helping me, just unloading me. "Leo," his father called without looking at him. "Get your bag." Leo grabbed his backpack, slammed the door, and kicked up a cloud of dust toward the car just to feel something move. His parents didn't hug him goodbye. They turned the car around and drove off fast, as if afraid he might follow. The dust settled. Silence returned. Leo was now alone with a stranger who didn't blink. Jacob looked him over, not angry but measuring, like a carpenter deciding if a board was straight enough to use. "Muck the stalls in the main barn," Jacob said, voice flat as gravel. "Feed the chickens, don't touch my tools, your room's in that shed." No welcome, no handshake. Just orders. He turned his back and walked into the house. The screen door banged shut behind him, sounding like the end of something. Leo's first days were a fight he didn't know how to win. He flung chicken feed across the yard. He slammed the wheelbarrow into the barn wall. He attacked the soiled straw in the stalls like it owed him money. Sweat burned his eyes, blisters tore open on his hands, and the sun hammered him without mercy. Jacob didn't yell, didn't scold, he barely looked at him. Leo was used to being punished for everything. Being ignored made him feel smaller than ever. By the third day, his anger had nowhere left to go. It settled into something heavier. Something lonely. He wandered behind the main barn, kicking rocks, thinking how he'd burn this stupid place to the ground if he only had a match. That's when he saw it. Another stable, far back near a dry creek bed. It was almost swallowed by weeds. The roof sagged. The walls leaned like old bones. Curiosity tugged at him. The only thing he felt that didn't hurt. He pushed the door open. The hinge screamed like something dying. The smell hit so hard it made his eyes water. Rot, old filth, ammonia, and something like metal. Inside, dust beams cut through the dark, lighting a single massive figure. A horse, or what was left of one. He stood hip-shot in a stall, buried in his own waste. His coat was matted and patchy. His mane was a tangled rope. His ribs pushed through his skin. And his eyes, cloudy, pale, almost white, stared into nothing. Blind. Leo froze. "Jesus," he whispered, the word small in the dark. The horse lifted his head an inch, ears twitching toward the sound. His breathing rattled like loose stones in a tin can. Leo wanted to run, but he couldn't. Something inside him, something he didn't understand, held him in place. This horse looked like he felt, forgotten, rotting, left in the dark. That night, Leo lay on his moldy mattress in the shed, staring into the dark. He couldn't stop thinking about the blind horse, that monster in the shadows. That breathing skeleton, he's just letting it die. That old man is letting it die in a box. The next morning, Leo skipped the chickens and grabbed a bucket. His heart thudded fast with a strange new feeling. Not anger, not fear. Something quieter. Something dangerous. Purpose. He went back to the ruined stable. The horse heard him coming and shifted his weight, joints cracking. "Hey," Leo said softly, "you're gross." He sat on an old crate outside the stall. For the first time in his young life, he didn't feel the need to break something. He just sat. The horse breathed. The world stayed quiet. Words began to spill out. His anger, his hurt, his memories. He never told anyone. "This place is awful. My parents hate me. Everyone thinks I'm broken." The horse listened, not judging, not arguing, just being there. For the first time, Leo felt the tight balloon inside him deflate, just a little, and that tiny release changed everything. Gideon was the horse's name. Leo found it on a small brass plate buried under grime on the stall door. Once he knew the name, it became impossible to walk away. Every day after chores, Leo slipped back to the ruined stable, talking to the old blind giant like he was the only living thing on earth worth speaking to. What surprised Leo most was how the horse listened, not with sight, but with stillness, with breath, with the slow tilt of an ear. And somehow, that was enough. Soon the talking wasn't enough. One afternoon, the smell became too much to ignore. The horse stood in months of waste. His coat looked like it hadn't been touched by a brush in years. Leo found an old curry comb in the main barn, rusted, half broken, and slipped into the stall. The stench burned his eyes. Gideon trembled at the touch but did not move away. "It's okay, big guy," Leo whispered. "This is gonna be rough." He tore at the matted filth until his hands bled. Hours passed. His arms ached. Dust and dead lice rained down. Every few minutes he wanted to quit, to throw the comb, to scream. But then he'd glance at Gideon's lowered head and feel something shift inside him. Just this one spot. Just finish this one patch. By the end of the day, one small square of clean chestnut hair shone through the filth, the first real thing Leo felt he had ever done. The next morning, new tools appeared on the feed sack outside the barn. A red-handled hoofpick, medicated shampoo, a soft brush. Jacob didn't say a word. He didn't even look at Leo. But the silent message was clear. If you're going to do this, do it right. Cleaning the hooves was the hardest. Overgrown, packed with rocks and rot, each hoof was heavier than anything Leo had lifted in his life. He braced his shoulder and lifted, almost falling backward. He scraped until his arm shook. He gagged more than once, but when the filth fell away, and the hoof beneath showed clean and whole, he felt a fierce protective pride, burning hotter than any match he'd ever lit. Days turned into weeks. Gideon's bones stayed sharp under his skin, but his coat grew cleaner. His wounds healed. The smell faded. He began to stand taller, straighter, like a soldier waking from a long, dark sleep. And Leo changed with him. His anger finally had a place to go, not outwards at people, but into work, into purpose. One afternoon, Jacob appeared in the doorway of the ruined stable. Leo jumped. He hadn't heard the old man walk up. "You're brushing him wrong," Jacob said. Leo stiffened, waiting for anger, for disappointment. Instead, Jacob walked forward, took the comb, and showed him how to start at the bottom and work up. "He's a good horse," Jacob murmured, eyes softening for the first time. "He was," he added quietly. Leo looked up. "What do you mean, was?" Jacob didn't answer. He turned and walked out of the stable. That night, Leo lay awake, the question burning a hole through his thoughts. The answer came a week later. A beat-up blue pickup rolled into the yard, coughing exhaust. A man climbed out, tall, sharp-eyed, wearing a flashy Western shirt that didn't match the dirt under his boots. His grin was too wide, his handshake too hard. "Jacob, you old hermit!" Marcus Thorne laughed, but there was no warmth in it. Jacob stiffened. His jaw worked. His eyes never softened. Leo felt the hairs on his arms rise. Thorne walked the property like a man checking prices at a market. When he spotted Gideon standing in the sunlight, his eyes narrowed. "Well, look at this," Thorne said, stepping close. "Still keeping this bag of bones alive?" He ran his hand along Gideon's neck, pressing in places that made the horse shift uncomfortably. Then his gaze snagged on the faint brand on Gideon's shoulder. Something lit up behind his eyes, something greedy. "I'll take him off your hands," Thorne said. "Scrap price." $500. Leo's heart slammed into his ribs. "He's not for sale!" Leo shouted before he even knew he'd moved. Thorne blinked, then smirked. "Got yourself a smart mouth here, Jacob." Jacob stepped forward, his voice cold as iron. "The boy's right. Gideon stays. And you leave." Thorne's smile dropped. He leaned closer to Jacob. "You're sitting on things you don't understand, old man." He shot one last long look at the horse, at the brand, at Leo. Then he left, dust swirling behind his truck like smoke. That night, Gideon began to cough. A deep, wet cough that rattled his whole body. By morning, he was struggling to breathe. He wouldn't put weight on his front leg. Leo panicked. He ran to the house, bursting through the screen door. "Jacob, he's dying! You have to call a vet." Jacob stared at him with a face carved from pain. "He's 28 years old, son. His time is—" "No!" Leo screamed. He reached into his pocket, pulling out every crumpled dollar he had ever saved. $43.16. It's all I have. I'll pay. You can't just let him die." Jacob froze, the boy's desperation hitting him harder than any insult ever could. He breathed out slow, then nodded. "I'll call Dr. Reed." The vet arrived 2 hours later. Dr. Evelyn Reed moved with calm hands and a steady voice, but even Leo could see the worry in her eyes. She checked Gideon's lungs, joints, gums. She listened to his rattling breaths. She touched him gently, like she already knew what she would have to say. "He's blind," she said. "His joints are severe with arthritis, and he has pneumonia, bad." Leo felt the world tilt. "Can you fix him?" he whispered. "I can make him comfortable," she said softly. "But, son, he's very old." Then she looked at the brand, and everything changed. "This isn't a farm horse," she whispered. "Jacob, do you know what he is?" Quote, Jacob's face drained of color. "This horse," Dr. Reed said reverently, "belonged to the 1st Cavalry Division. He's a decorated military veteran." Leo stared at the blind old giant as if seeing him for the first time. A soldier, a guardian, a hero, but he didn't know the real story yet. Not the truth that broke Jacob Lawson wide open. Not the secret hidden inside the parade saddle. Not the reason Marcus Thorne wanted the farm so badly. That revelation came next. Dr. Reed's words hung in the air like a church bell still ringing. A decorated military horse. Gideon wasn't just old. He wasn't just abandoned. He had served. He had protected someone. But who? Jacob didn't speak. Not then. Not until hours later when he finally walked into the house with slow, heavy steps and called Leo to follow. At the end of the hallway was a locked door Leo had never seen open. Jacob's hands shook slightly as he pressed the key into the lock. The hinges groaned. The door swung wide. It wasn't a closet. It was a shrine. Dust floated like snow in the still air. Photos lined the walls. Young men on powerful horses, all wearing crisp military uniforms. In every photo, the same rider sat atop the same beautiful horse. A young man with Jacob's eyes, his smile so bright it felt alive even now. "That's my boy," Jacob said, voice rough. "Michael Lawson." Leo stepped in slowly, feeling like the air itself needed to be handled gently. A folded American flag rested in a glass case. Ribbons hung beside old parade tack that gleamed even under a layer of dust. Gideon, strong and proud, stood next to Michael in every picture. Jacob placed a trembling hand on a frame. "Michael was just like you," he whispered. "Couldn't sit still. Always pushing. Always fighting. School said he was defiant. Hard to control. He swallowed hard, but on a horse he became someone else. Someone steady. Someone focused." Leo's chest tightened. "He joined the army," Jacob said. "Made it into the 1st Cavalry Division. Rode Gideon in parades, shows, ceremonies. They were a pair. Couldn't separate the two." His voice cracked. "Then Michael deployed to Afghanistan. Gideon stayed here, safe." Jacob's breath shook. "A roadside bomb took my son 6 months later." The room fell silent. Only Jacob's ragged breathing remained. "When they shipped Gideon home," he continued, "I couldn't look at him. Every time I saw him, I saw Michael. Heard his voice. Felt the loss all over again. So I shut the door. Shut the world out. Let the barn go quiet." His eyes glistened. "But you woke him up again." Leo felt something deep and painful crack open inside him. For the first time, he didn't feel angry. He felt connected, like two broken pieces that finally understood each other. "Where's his saddle?" Leo asked, needing to see every last part of the life this horse once lived. Jacob pointed to a large, dusty trunk. Leo opened it and found the parade saddle, stiff with age. He carried it back to Gideon's stall and began cleaning it with slow, careful strokes, determined to restore every inch. Then his hand hit something strange inside the fleece. A lump, not part of the saddle, hidden. Leo worked his pocket knife into a seam and cut the old stitching. A folded oilskin bundle slid out. Inside was a brass key, a discharge certificate, a notarized bill of sale, a hand-drawn map of the farm, and one handwritten letter. The letter shook in Leo's hands as he read. "Dad, if you're reading this, things went bad. Don't let Thorn get the farm. He knows the county wants the new highway across the back 40. I hid my combat pay and Grandma's money. It's all for the farm. It's for Gideon. The key in this bundle opens the safe box. Don't give up. Gideon will protect you. Love, Michael." Leo's heart thundered. Thorn wanted the farm. Thorn knew about the highway deal. And Thorn had been circling Gideon for a reason. "What you got there, boy?" The voice cracked like a whip through the stable. Leo spun around. Marcus Thorn stood in the doorway, his face twisted with triumph. "I knew that horse was hiding something," Thorn hissed. "Hand it over." Leo clutched the bundle to his chest. "No!" Thorn lunged. Leo screamed. And everything changed in one impossible moment. Gideon, blind and frail, surged to his feet with a roar that shook the boards. The old soldier's training came alive, a sound only heard when a rider was in danger. The dying horse reared up, massive and terrifying against the fading light, hooves slamming down inches from Thorn's boots. The stall door shattered into splinters. Thorn fell back in the dirt, white with fear. Then, click-clack, a shotgun pump cut the silence. Jacob Lawson stood behind him, eyes blazing. "Get off my land," he growled, shotgun leveled, "and don't come back." Thorn scrambled away, spitting curses, but his voice trembled. "This isn't over, old man!" But it was. Not his way, not anymore, because when Thorn's truck roared away, Gideon collapsed. His body had given everything it had left. "No!" Leo dropped to his knees beside the horse, sobbing. "Please, please stay, please." Jacob called Dr. Reed, voice breaking. "Evelyn, come quick." She arrived fast, checked Gideon, and looked at Leo with gentle sorrow. "He fought for you," she whispered. "He held on because of you. But now, you have to let him rest." Leo shook his head at first. Then, slowly, painfully, he nodded. "Not in the dark," he whispered. "He deserves the light." It took all three of them to help Gideon stand one last time. Step by slow step, they walked him out of the ruined stable and toward the lone cottonwood tree marked on Michael's map. The sunset painted the desert in gold and fire as they reached the hill. Leo fed Gideon carrots with trembling hands. "Thank you," he whispered into the old horse's neck. For everything. Jacob rested a hand on Gideon's head, tears falling freely. Good boy, good soldier. Dr. Reed gave the final injection. Gideon lay down in the tall grass, breathing out in one last peaceful sigh. The rattling stopped. The world went still. Leo didn't scream, didn't break things, didn't burn. He just cried soft, clean tears into Gideon's coat until the sky darkened above them. The next morning, Jacob and Leo dug the grave together. They worked until their backs ached. Leo placed the parade saddle inside. A soldier's burial, Jacob said. The safe deposit box held the deed and over $50,000. Enough to save the farm. Enough to start again. Thorne faced charges for trespassing and assault. The farm was safe. And Leo. Leo was different. The fire inside him didn't burn out. It changed shape. It steadied. It found focus. When his parents came to pick him up, they barely recognized him. Sun-browned, calloused hands, quiet eyes. Jacob stepped forward. "Your boy saved this farm," he said softly, "and he honored my son." Then Jacob handed Leo the worn leather journal Michael used to write in and a set of keys. "This place is yours too if you want it," Jacob said. "Weekends, summers, those young horses out there, they need someone. They need you." Leo looked at the journal. The keys, the man who had become something like family. "Yes, sir," he said. "I want it." And as his stunned parents watched, Leo didn't walk toward their car. He walked back toward the pasture, toward the future, toward the life Gideon had given him. Leo Barker wasn't a wildfire anymore. He was a keeper, a horseman, a boy who had saved a life that everyone else had thrown away, and in doing so, had saved his own.